Continue with the 17th chapter of the book of Isaiah, the book of Yeshaya. And we're continuing, of course, with the chapters about Isaiah's prophecy to the other nations. And so chapter 17 begins, Masa Damascus, Hine Damascus Musar Meir V'haita Me'e Mapala. The Damascus pronouncement, behold, Damascus shall cease to be a city, it shall become a heap of ruins. And if you look in that verse, there's some alliteration with the mem. Masa, Damascus has the mem the second, Damascus, Musar, Meir, Me'e Mapala. So it's some alliteration there using the same letters. And why it talks about Damascus here is the city. Of course, we still know the city, Damascus. Today, it's really referring to the kingdom of Aram Damascus. The kingdom, David, we're going to go this way. The kingdom of Aram Damascus, the Arameans who were defeated by the Assyrians. And probably this prophecy in the year about 732 or something of that sort is when the Assyrians attacked the coalition of Aram and the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, and there was the kingdom of Gaza was in with them again as well, and they were fighting against the kingdom of Yehuda, amongst others. If you remember from the Book of Kings, the king of Yehuda gets the Assyrians to come in to defend him against the Arameans and the northern kingdom. And this prophecy is saying that the Aram, and with it the northern kingdom, are going to be decimated. Continuing in verse 2. Azuvot arei aroer la'adarim tiena v'ravtsu ye'ein macharid. You see more alliteration with the ayin there in this verse as well. The towns of Amer shall be deserted. They shall be a place for flocks to lie down with none disturbing. And this has been one of the themes, has been a place that everything is going to get desolate, destruction is going to happen. The wolves, the foxes, the jackals are going to be there. There's not going to be human habitation anymore. It's a complete wiping out. It's not just a loss in battle, it's a complete destruction. V'nishpat miftsar me'Ephraim, we're in verse 3, u'me'amlacha miDamascus, u'shar adam kavod, b'nei Yisrael yiyu nu'um Adonai tzvaot. And fortresses shall cease from Ephraim, right? Ephraim won't anymore be a power. It won't have any more fortresses. But that's better than what's going to happen to Damascus, to the kingdom of Aram Damascus, where they will lose their sovereignty. They won't be a kingdom anymore. And so that's going to be much worse. The Israelites are going to suffer in this battle. There won't be so many members of Bnei Yisrael, of the northern kingdom, Malchut Yisrael, left. Many of them will be exiled. But Aram, this prophecy is saying, is going to be completely decimated. As we've said many times in this book, very often we have God called Hashem Tzvakot, the Tzava, God, the Lord of hosts, God who is truly the one who is commanding the army. Continuing now in verse 5. Is it 4 or 5? I can't see. It's too sunny. Vaya bayom ahu yidal chvod Yaakov u'mishman b'saro yerazeh. That day, the mass of Yaakov will dwindle, right? Yaakov will lose. It's going to be many less people. We've seen that many, many times has been said. And the fatness of his body will become lean, right? Lessening. The tribes are being exiled. There are not as many of them as there were in the past. That's what's being said in this prophecy. V'haya ke'asof katzir kama uzro shibalim yiksor v'ayta k'mlaket shibalim be'emek Rephaim. After being like standing grain harvested by the reapers who reap ears by the armful, he shall be like the ears that are gleaned in the valley of Rephaim. So they are going to be lesser. There are not going to be as many who are, right? It's the image that's given. It's an image that's given to a society that's full of farmers, right? If this is going to look like after your crops have been harvested, the minimal amount that's left, the nothingness that's left, the death and destruction will be so much that it won't be very much there. Continuing in verse 6, V'nishar bo olalot k'nokev zayit shnaim shlosha gargahim berosh amir arba'a chamishim b'siyafeha priya nu'um Adonai Elohei Yisrael. Only gleaning shall be left of him, as when one beats an olive tree. Right? It seemed to be like we were talking about olalot. Oftentimes it's referring to grapes, but here it's referring to olives. That there's only going to be a little left. There'll be 2 berries, maybe 3 on the top branch, 4 or 5 on the crown. That's what God says. So it's going to be very, very little is left of these armies, of these societies, of these civilizations. They're going to be destroyed, Damascus, and also the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. And here comes some really the key verses, because this is the lesson, and this is the idea that we've seen many times in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. There is a political lesson for what goes on. Right? Assyria was given money by the Judean kingdom to defend them, so that's why they came in, and that's why they attacked Aram, and that's why they attacked the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, as a way of getting paid all this money. But in addition to the historical reason, the Tanakh gives us a theological reason. And the theological reason here is in verses 6 and 7. Bayomahu Yeshaya ha'adam aloseu ve'einav el kadosh Yisrael tirena. On that day, the people will turn to their maker. They'll turn to God, and they'll look to the Kadosh Yisrael, the Holy One of Israel. Right? They will recognize that the reason that this thing is happening is because of things that they did wrong, mistakes that they were making. And in verse 8, the same theme we've had so many times. V'lo yishel hamizbachot ma'aseh yadav asher asu etzbaotav lo yirav asherim v'hachamanim. They shall turn not to the altars that their hands made, or look to the sacred posts, the idol worship, and incense that they own fingers delivered, right? So here again, it's over and over again, we're being told in this book, rely upon God and don't rely upon other things. Generally, what we're being told by Yeshaya is being told to the kings and the leaders is don't rely upon Egypt, don't rely upon Iran, don't rely upon Assyria, don't rely upon our enemies. That's the major theme over and over again that's being told. Here, in a very similar way, being told Bnei Israel, after this death and destruction, will realize that they have to rely upon God. And going back to his first chapter, when Yeshaya said, Lama li rov zivchechem, that God said through Yeshaya, I don't need your sacrifices. That doesn't do anything for me. That's not what's going to make things right for you. If you're rotten, if you're evil, so what if you bring sacrifices to me? So here as well, he's saying to them, A, idolatry, and B, even sacrifices to God, even the mizbachot, which could be mizbachot that are for God, even those are not going to be beneficial. Says Yeshaya, you have to rely upon God. Continuing verse 9, Bayomahu yeh arei ma'uzo ka'azuvat hachoresh v'hamir asher azvu mipnei bnei Yisrael v'aita shemama. And that day their fortresses, the fortress cities, shall be like deserted sites, like Choresh and Amir, abandoned because of the Israelites. There shall be desolation. So more destruction. And why is this? Again, the same thing. Ki shachachta Elohei Yeshech v'tzur mu'uzech lo zacharta al kein titi nitei na'amanim uzmrat zer tizarenim. And why is this? Because they have forgotten the God of Israel, the God who saves them. They have not remembered the rock who shelters them, right? Going all the way back to the way God is described in the Torah at times and in other times. Sur, we say, Sur Yeladet Chateshi, back in the Song of Hazino, that Bnei Israel, they denied the rock who was their salvation. And so here too, the rock, the thing that is forever, the thing that lasts, the thing that won't be destroyed, God, Bnei Israel forgot. Continuing in verse 11, Bayom nite'ech Tishak Shegi Uvavoker Zarech Tafrichi Nad Katsir Bayom Nachala Uchaev Anosh. On that day, when you plant, you will see it grow. On the morning when you sow, you will see it bud, but the branches wither of day on a day of sickness and agony. Right? So it looks like things are going to grow. It looks like things are going to be good. You think that things are going to get better. Yeshaya is saying that, unfortunately, is not the case. We're in verse 12. Kamat yamim yehmeyun ushaon leumim kishaon mayim kabirum yisaun. As the roar of the many peoples that roar towards the sea, the rage of the nations that rage, a rage like the mighty waters. So we're not told exactly who it is that's raging here. Who are these people that cause all sorts of trouble and all sorts of problems? We don't know who they are. We don't know who these nations are. But that's what's being described to us, is more, right? More destruction, more death, more raging, more. That's just over and over again the same thing. Le'umim kishaon mayim rabim yisaun v'ga'ar bo v'nas me'racha v'rodef kemotz harem lifnei ruach u'chegalgal lifnei sufa nation, raging like massive waters. But God shouts at them and they will flee far away, driven like chaff before the winds into the hill. So who is it referring to? That again, we don't know. We don't know who it is that are these nations. Is it talking about the Assyrians after they defeat Bnei Israel? Is it talking about the Bnei Israel? Is it talking about the Moabites? We're not told at all who are these nations that are causing these problems. La'et erev v'hinei balha baterem boker einenu zechelek shosenu v'goral levosenu. In the evening there will be terror. By the morning there is no more. Such is the lot of our enemies, the portion of them that plunder us. So eventually, even the enemies will be defeated as one way. This who's coming to destroy us. So in the evening he's there, but by the morning he won't be there. That's the story, of course, that happens during the time of Chizkiah when Sancheiriv is surrounding Yerushalayim. So that seems to be the main reason the main way of understanding this verse is that ultimately the Assyrians, who are the ones who are the destroyers of the kingdom of Damascus, what we call the Aram, the Arameans, and the destroyers of the northern kingdom of Malchut Yisrael, what eventually is going to happen to them is they themselves are, of course, going to be. So here we have another one of the pronouncements that is to the nations, also a pronouncement to Bnei Israel, to the northern kingdom. Again, it's one of these chapters that are confusing because, as far as we know, Yeshaya is not going up to Damascus and reading this to them. This is not Yonah who goes to Nineveh. We don't see that Yeshaya is told to go to Damascus. We're not even told that he goes to the northern kingdom. He's telling this to the southern kingdom. He's speaking about this in the kingdom of Yehudah. And it's almost like they are being told, this is the lesson that you should learn from what has happened to the northern kingdom, what has happened to Damascus. And that lesson is over and over and over again. Only rely upon God. That's who you have to have your bitachon. That's who you have to have your emunah. You have to have your full faith, your full trust, your full belief in God. And of course, it dovetails well over and over again, saying the same thing with the story of Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu, who, when he's surrounded by this army of Sancheiriv, when they have devastated whatever was remaining of the northern kingdom, basically all of the kingdom of Yehudah, his own kingdom, and basically all that's left is Yerushalayim. He puts his full faith in God and prays to God, and God delivers him from his enemies. And so Yeshaya's words eventually don't fall on deaf ears. They're understood by Chizkiyahu. And Chizkiyahu, of course, that's his name. Chazak Yah, he makes God strong through his trust and through his faith with God.